Alright bass friends, this is the CNZ Audio JB-Mini-SG, which is a cute little short scale jazz bass clone. So let's check it out. I had never heard of this company before, and my friend Zach, one of my good army band friends, let me borrow it so I could review it for the channel. Now this is a cheap bass. It goes for about $200 on their website, and when Zach bought it, it was actually less than that. So prices have gone up in the last little while for these basses. We'll see if that trend continues. Naturally, never having heard of the company before and knowing the price, I was skeptical, to say the least. But it's actually pretty good. Before we dive in too far though, there are links to affiliate gear in the description, including this bass. Using those links is a nice way to support the channel without spending anything extra. So if you did want to buy this bass, the link will be down there. Plus, I have links to my research and notes about the bass and the company and all of that too for your convenience if you don't want to have to do any of the Googling yourself. You're welcome. I'm not affiliated in any way with CNZ or sponsored or anything like that. So these are my own thoughts and unaltered bass grooves. If you like this kind of content and find this useful, remember to like and subscribe, and it really helps me hit my goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers so I can monetize this channel and I can keep bringing all this cool bass groove stuff to you guys on a consistent basis. All right, enough of that. Let's talk about this bass. The CNZ JB-Mini is a 28.6-inch scale-length bass with jazz-style pickups and is styled pretty much exactly like a classic Fender jazz bass. They aren't even trying to hide the fact that it's a jazz bass copy, and I'm completely okay with that. There's really no point in trying to hide it. We all know where they took the inspiration from, so just embrace it. The two pickups here are passive, but I wasn't able to find any information about the pickups themselves. What brand, wiring, nothing. It just says jazz style pickups. I'm assuming it's similar to the Fender style pickups, but didn't say anything about it. I'm assuming they sourced them from China or Taiwan or something, but I have no idea who makes them, but they sound fine. The body is a basswood or basswood. I'm gonna go with basswood. It's gotta be basswood, for sure. The neck is Canadian hard maple, which obviously is the most polite and agreeable maple out there. Fun fact, Canadian maple or sugar maple is the primary source of maple syrup. The fingerboard looks like rosewood, but it's actually imitation rosewood. I guess rosewood can be a bit expensive, and they wanted to keep the price low. It's a shame that it's not real rosewood, but you know, I can respect the guys at CNZ for being upfront about it. They did list that it's imitation rosewood on their website. So, you know, I can respect that. This is the seafoam green version with an ivory pick guard. But they have other colors. They say it weighs in at 6.2 pounds, and I can confirm this thing is light and small. It fits perfectly into a guitar gig bag and actually is pretty well balanced and plays nicely. So who the heck is CNZ Audio anyway? When Zach handed this bass over, I immediately assumed that it was just another Chinese knockoff company. But when I started researching, I found that CNZ Audio is actually based out of Ohio and was started by three brothers, Caleb, Nathan, and Zach Warwick, or CNZ for their first initials. They started the company when they were teenagers, building music gear for their church worship team, and eventually they just decided to form a company and start shipping them wherever they could, focusing mainly on gear for budget-conscious musicians. They sell more than guitars and basses too. They've got an assortment of cables, pedals, percussion instruments. Their business is pretty impressive, but what about this bass? Is this bass any good? Let's get into the main reason why you're all here. How does this $200 bass sound? So you heard a sample in my intro, which was the sound of the bass with both pickups fully engaged, tone knob up all the way. Even though it's a short scale bass, it still has a decently punchy sound with some nice mids and plenty of treble, although some of that has to do with the strings, which are pretty new, and I think they're actually a pretty light gauge. Let's take a listen with just the bridge pickup. Everything else rolled off, tone all the way up still. The tone isn't too thin. It's got a nice growl and punch to it. I don't know if it's gonna have quite the same amount of body of tone that a typical Fender Jazz would have, but considering the price difference there, the tone is pretty dang good. So it's got some nice jazz tone. Let's see how the neck pickup sounds. Tone still all the way up with the bridge pickup rolled off. It's got a pleasant round tone that works really well. It's got that versatility that you expect from the jazz bass setup. As for the tone knob, with the tone knob all the way up, the trebles are present and give some good definition without being too forward. It's a nice balance, but let's take a look at what the sound of the bass is with the tone knob rolled all the way off. And this is with both pickups fully engaged. It actually still feels like a really well-defined sound. It's not muddy or lacking attack. It just kind of rolls off all that fret buzz and clacking that you get with the tone knob all the way up. I really actually kind of like that tone. But can it handle the fuzz? Can it metal? You guys know that I'm not much of a metal player, but this bass, with some work, dialing in some good distortion that would work well for metal, I think you could totally metal with this bass, although you might want a 5-string version for that, but I think it could totally work. You know what? I like this bass. It's cute, it sounds good, it's easy to play, it's super lightweight, they got some fun colors. I fully expected to have a bunch of complaints that would maybe not want to recommend this bass, but I don't have any real glaring issues with it right now. There are a few small things, to be fair. So when Zach gave it to me, the action was pretty high, and the intonation was almost a half step sharp when fretting versus the harmonics. And so I had to adjust the bridge quite a bit to get it to be more playable and to fix the intonation. It's not really unexpected in this price range for it to not be set up perfectly out of the factory. But while I was working on it, I tried lowering the action and was getting it to the point where it was getting nice and comfortable to play, but the strings started hitting the pickups. So I tried lowering the pickup, but I couldn't. I mean, there are screws here, and every other bass I've ever owned, I've been able to adjust pickup height to a certain degree. But these are bottomed out, straight out of the factory. Like this is as low as they'll go. So it looks like higher action is kind of built into the design. I just adjusted my playing technique to not have the strings hit the pickups while I was playing, although I did bottom out a few times. You can hear it in some of the samples I have. But I kind of wish that the pickups were just a bit lower, so I could have more wiggle room with my bridge adjustments. That would be ideal. I think these just are too high. The other weird thing is that there's an unusual fretboard overhang. The neck ends, but the fretboard keeps going for a little while. It's an odd design quirk. You know that dirt and gunk are going to get in there and be really difficult to clean eventually. And it already looks like it's starting to warp, and I assume that it will continue to warp more. It's not a deal breaker in this price range, but they should probably make sure to get necks and fingerboards that are the same length. Other than that, I haven't really found much to complain about. The fretwork seems pretty good, on par with what you would expect from a budget Chinese bass. The tuners hold their tune pretty well, probably not as well as more expensive ones on my other basses, but they're just fine for this price point. Overall, this bass, it's a winner. It's got a solid tone, it's lightweight, it's small, it's easy and fun to play. It's got some quirks, but nothing that should dissuade you from buying one at all. I've seen a number of folks over on Talkbass that bought this just because of the price so they could mod it. They swapped out the pickups, you could swap up the bridge, as well as the tuners for something a little bit pricier and that'll hold better. And you'd have a great little short scale jazz bass that still costs way less than a Fender short scale jazz bass, and maybe even still cheaper than a Squier short scale jazz. It's a fun little bass that would work great for a young bassist, or if you're just a person of smaller stature, or even just as an addition to your collection to have a little practice bass that's super light and easy to cart around. So color me impressed, guys. For $200, it's pretty hard not to be happy with something this small that sounds this good. But you let me know what you guys think. Have you ever played CNZ? Would you get one? What are your thoughts about it? Let me know down in the comments, and as always, like and subscribe if you found this useful, and share with one of your bass friends. Let's keep the good news going. So keep grooving, guys, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.